Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07, excuse me. It's 6:07 on O'Connor and Company as we charge through the news cycle for your pleasure and edification. Coming up in 30 minutes, Hans von Spakovsky gives us his legal opinion on the Supreme Court's legal opinions yesterday and what's to come. 7:05, Reagan Reese, White House correspondent for the Daily Caller on the Musk-Trump spat. 8:05, speaking of that spat, how about this book, timely for the headlines? The Power and the Money, the Epic Clashes Between Commanders-in-Chief and Titans of Industry. That author, Tevi Troy, will join us at 8:05, 8:35. Roseanne Barr. I think Roseanne might have an observation or two about this.
I can imagine she would, and they're going to be hilarious.
That's Patrice Onwuka. She has observations. That's why she's here. Me too. I'm Larry O'Connor. Well, Patrice, what to say about this? I want to say the thing that makes this extraordinary in my mind is that it played out in public on social media for us all to see. And
yes.
By the way, everyone says that it was this bad. It was really mostly Musk. Trump was incredibly reserved for Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? I mean,
exactly. Yes.
As Trump can be, this was actually like he was somewhat, one wonders if Melania's
measured.
Like, Donald,
yes.
Donald, don't do something you will regret, Donald. A lot of people were noting, and I think that it is a fair observation, that men in general, but certainly specific types of men, alphas, if you may, or people who have a strong sort of type A personality. Oftentimes we're very, I consider myself a strong type A personality, by the way, so I'll go ahead and speak on behalf of my type. We can be really affable, really good to deal with. We've got a lot of, abilities to make friends and sort of, and charm people and that sort of thing. But the second you're on our bad side, the second something happens, you flip a switch and it can get ugly. And when we go at it, we go from 0 to 100, right? Or in the case of a Tesla, 0 to 180 in about 4.5 seconds. You get the Model S. I observed to a couple of my friends yesterday, again, privately. I actually reached out to one of my friends who I just happened to have like an hour and a half long spat with earlier this week.
Okay.
And he and I went at it on text message, and we resolved it quickly. Part of it was a misunderstanding, and part of it was one of us, not me, was having a bad day. And so it just, something came across wrong. He didn't like it. We had it out privately. But in the middle of that hour and a half, I was like, well, I don't know where to talk to you again. You're out. You lose my number. You're out of my life. And now we're back to being besties again. But that happens. Okay. That's not uncommon. It's how men have it out. The difference is we're not used to seeing it like this. I mean, you have sons. They get into some knockdown dragouts, don't they?
Yes, they do. And I am married to an alpha male, so I totally understand exactly what you're saying. This is personal and this is business, some of it. I agree that President Trump is far more measured than we've seen. And frankly, this whole administration, this time around, maybe it's because he was grazed by a bullet, but he's letting a lot of things slide that in the past he would have pounced on and really pushed back in ways that would like make you pull your shirt collar and say, sheesh. Yeah. But I don't. He threatened to take away Elon Musk's, cancel his government contracts, and as I was talking about in the previous hour, that's a hefty amount, not just in a dollar figure. I'm talking about probably close to $40 billion, but also as a percentage of each of the businesses that like SpaceX is 25% of their revenue. So
can I jump in on that real fast? And I promise I'll hold your thought. I agree with you, and I meant to say this in the last hour when you pointed out. You're right, that is a hefty dollar amount. But for Elon, it goes well. But this is his lifelong dream. He dreamt of this when he was a child. This is his quest. Elon Musk doesn't need the money. He don't care. Now, if you're a stockholder in Tesla or SpaceX, obviously you want Elon to care. You want Elon to care. But ultimately, in his DNA, he wants to be the man who leads the human race to Mars. And so I think it hits even more personally for him beyond what it does to his balance sheet.
That's interesting. And hey, I'll for him leading us to Mars. I do think this is going to get worked out, and I think it's going to get worked out pretty quickly. The left is more than happy to pounce on this and say, oh, we told you so. Oh, these two, they were never going to get along. We could have predicted it. I think we all kind of knew that these two personalities at some point would clash, but I also don't think that it's the end of the story. I do think that they have a mutual respect and a deep love and respect for each other, both in their accomplishments as well as their how they view humanity and America, that they won't be able to overcome this.
Well, I want to talk to our author who's joining us at 8:05, Tebby Troy, because Woodrow Wilson and Henry Ford, Teddy Roosevelt and J.P. Morgan, Franklin Roosevelt and Henry Luce, Bill Clinton and Bill Gates, Barack Obama and Jamie Dimon, Donald Trump and Mark Zuckerberg, and now, of course, Trump with Musk. This is not uncommon. This is not uncommon. And I want to know, what the repair looks like. Other people were comparing this to John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Best friends when they had the revolution. Absolutely clashed when Adams was vice president and Jefferson was secretary of state. In fact, ran against each other for president, hated each other, and then they were like brothers again by the time they both passed away on the same day. On July 4th, 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. This story isn't done. Trump came out. One of his only real strong forays yesterday during all of this was because Musk kept saying, we got to save money, we got to save money, we got too much spending. It's not a spending bill. It's a reconciliation package.
It's not a spending bill.
Stop. I kept saying that to my Twitter feed when he would tweet. It's not a spending bill. Trump said, hey, easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon Musk government subsidies and contracts. And then he said, I was always surprised Biden didn't do it. Elon Musk replies and says, in light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. That's the spacecraft that was used to save the astronauts who were stranded on the space station. As we mentioned, Steve Bannon chimed in, and do we want to hear this? All right, fine. Let's listen to Bannon.
Yes,
here.
Let's listen.
Cut one.
He's a know-it-all. He knows some engineering. Don't get me wrong. I give a hat tip for that, but he doesn't know anything about the real world. Doge was, and for any fanboys that still exist, while you're wrapping up in your cape tonight, understand on Doge, he didn't find any fraud. There's plenty of fraud out there. This is President Trump's first complaint. Was this all BS? Right with the Doge. The act that President Trump should be taking immediately, I think, when he threatens to take one of the big programs out of SpaceX, President Trump tonight should sign an executive order calling for the Defense Production Act to be called in SpaceX and seize SpaceX tonight before midnight.
He also went on to say that Elon Musk should be deported because he's sure that he's an illegal immigrant.
That is so uncalled for. Oh, my goodness.
Somebody replied to that video on X and said, let's not do that. That's what communists do. Let's not do the whole government will seize your industry kind of thing. All right. Obviously, listen, you don't have to feel compelled to take sides in this. I am not taking sides in this. I see great worth and great value.
No, Larry, I would go overboard and say don't take sides in this. Don't folks.
But you feel free to if you wish. You could be on Team Bannon or you can be on Team Musk. Somebody had said Trump should be impeached and J.D. Vance is president. That'll solve this. And Elon Musk said, I agree. It's like, what? Stop. Everybody stop.
That's too much. That's too much.
Newt Gingrich had some pretty interesting. Newt Gingrich is a man who has been he knows this town. He knows power. He knows influence. Yes. Some of those presidents that I just mentioned who had clashes with titans like Clinton and Gates and Obama and Dimon, Newt was there for all of it. So
that's right.
I want you to hear what he had to say last night on Jesse Waters and a little bit more as this story plays out. And I don't want to forget, coming up at 8:35, we'll get Roseanne's opinion of this. Roseanne Barr, a fine cultural and political critic in her own right. That's coming up right now at 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
What happened today?
Well, I'm beginning to think that they are mad at each other. I mean, I don't want to go much. Look, this is the soap opera phase of American politics. Everybody can understand it. Everybody can pay attention to it. But in the long run, what's happening with China, what's happening with Russia, what's happening with the big, beautiful bill, those are vastly more important than whether or not Elon Musk is having a temper tantrum. And remember, Musk is the wealthiest guy in the world, but Donald Trump is the most powerful person in the world. And I think probably that Musk kind of forgot that. Musk money comes from having met consumers, having been brilliant. Trump has the vote of 77 million Americans to say he ought to be the commander-in-chief. And in that kind of a contest, there's no question in my mind that 2, 3, 4, 5 months from now, Donald Trump will still be president, and Musk may or may not be relevant. And that partly depends on whether Musk decides to grow up and find a better way of doing this.
And I want to spend a little more time on this because Newt Gingrich is a great observer of this sort of thing, and he's not vested in this directly, so he's able to sort of give us his seasoned and reasoned observation. So a little bit more on this, especially considering also Newt Gingrich is quite a bit of a historian in his own right, so he draws on history. Cut 3.
Does this kerfuffle affect the China situation? Does it affect the big, beautiful bill? Does it affect Ukraine and space? And what kind of impact will it have?
I think it depends on whether this is a temporary, very intense exchange or becomes kind of a long, permanent struggle. For example, the United States needs SpaceX. SpaceX this year will launch 97% of the satellites worldwide. It's an extraordinary asset for us. To have the President of the United States end up in a power struggle, which is not really much, it's a public relations struggle. There's no power struggle here. One of them is president, the other one isn't president. And I think that's part of what the media doesn't quite get. And I think it's part of what frustrates Elon Musk, is that, he has a fairly high sense of himself and should. I mean, I think he's a brilliant guy. I think the things he's done are remarkable. But they're remarkable as an entrepreneur. Henry Ford didn't end up running the country. Thomas Edison didn't end up running the country. And in fact, in the end, Elon Musk is not going to end up running the country. So I think probably things will calm down over the next 2 or 3 days. Trump has a lot of really serious things to do. And placating Musk is probably down around number 27 on the list.
Yeah,
Wow.
He's not wrong about that either. He also went into some of the criticisms that Musk has on the bill, which I think are reasonable. Yeah, go ahead and check out the whole interview when you get a chance. But, at one point, Musk said, well, Trump wouldn't have won Pennsylvania if it weren't for me. I think that crossed the line. First of all, if you want to get on Trump's bad side, suggest that you're responsible for his success. Yeah. That ain't going to do it, pal. And it's also just not true. And any keen observer of Pennsylvania knows that Musk played a part, but certainly not the critical part. David Marcus, who writes for Fox News and is a friend of mine, he spent the last month of the campaign basically in Pennsylvania. Selena Zito knows Pennsylvania voters better. They both came out immediately and said, that's just wrong. That's not what happened in Pennsylvania. So listen, I again maintain I think this will get resolved. I think this is going to be an epic Netflix series about 10 years from now.
I can't wait to see it. Listen, I think what former Speaker Gingrich just said was really, really insightful, because I think it puts this in context that this is not the first time we've seen business titans who, see themselves as larger than life, be humbled by the fact that they're still not the leader of the free world. And while they're what they bring to bear, their assets, their innovations, hugely important for technology, for day-to-day life, that still doesn't mean that they get to run the White House. And we're going to be speaking a little bit later to one of our favorite reporters there,
Reagan Reese from the Daily Caller.
Yeah, about what was going on in the White House. But it sounded like Elon Musk was really trying to throw his weight around a little bit too much. And this is kind of a humbling experience. And when no one has humbled him before, he's gonna lash out. And I think he's lashing out as a response.
Real fast, the one thing, the crossing the Rubicon moment, it appeared yesterday, was when Elon Musk, he himself said, "Oh, okay, fine, I'm going to go nuclear." The reason you haven't seen the Epstein files is because Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. And everyone's like, wait a minute, that was announced a couple of months ago that his name appears in the Epstein files. That's not actually a revelation.
Unless he has something new he knows.
Jeff, well, and if, by the way, if he does, so he kept it quiet until he got into a fight with Donald
Now,
Trump. And
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Elon Musk has a better understanding of what's in those files than, say, Merrick Garland and Joe Biden's Justice Department. If there was something damaging about Donald Trump in there, you don't think that would have come out
during
when
the
they
campaign?
had control over those files, or by Hillary Clinton's people during the 2016 campaign? Give me a break.
Yes. Yeah.
David Schoen, the trial defense lawyer who was hired by Jeffrey Epstein, he was Epstein's defense lawyer, criminal lawyer. He talked to Epstein before his death. He can say authoritatively, this is his quote, authoritatively, unequivocally, and definitively that he had no information to hurt President Trump because I specifically asked him that.
Wow.
So there's that issue. 623.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
637 O'Connor and Company. I want to correct the mistake. I talked about being a shareholder of Tesla or SpaceX. SpaceX is not a publicly held company.
Okay.
Tesla is. Thank you to one of our listeners correcting that on social media for me. That's try that with Anderson Cooper. See how long it takes him to correct the record. 637 O'Connor and Company. 705 is going to bring us Reagan Reese of the Daily Caller on the Musk-Trump thing. It's ditto 805 with Tevi Troy, author of The Power and the Money, a book about titans of industry and their commanders-in-chief. 835 Roseanne Barr. Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka, and joining us now is the Roseanne Barr of the legal world. He is Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Hans von Spakovsky. Hans, thanks for joining us.
Patrice, Larry, thanks for having me on.
Yesterday, 3 unanimous decisions, Ames versus Ohio Department of Youth Services, Catholic Charities Bureau versus Wisconsin Labor and Industry, and Smith & Wesson versus Mexico. Which one do you want to start? Which one really stands out to you in terms of sort of a domino effect here on how it might affect other things?
Well, let me tell you, the liberal world must be reeling this morning because you had 3 unanimous opinions written by the 3 liberal justices that made them look like they were conservatives who believe in the Constitution. And all 3 of them were important. And the people who are reeling this morning are the gay rights activists and the anti-religious, anti-Catholic, and anti-Second Amendment wing of the Democratic Party, because we had 3 great decisions. The Ohio case was written by the newest member of the court, Justice Brown Jackson, and in it, this woman who worked for Ohio state government applied for a management job. She was a heterosexual. She was denied the job. They hired a lesbian woman to replace her, demoted this woman, and hired a gay man to replace her. And so she sued. She sued saying, listen, I've been discriminated against because of my sexual orientation. And the lower court said, well, yeah, but to prove that, we're going to impose a higher standard of proof on you than we would on somebody who's gay and is suing. And the court yesterday unanimously said the Civil Rights Act protects everybody, and it doesn't have different standards of proof depending on what the color of your skin is or your sexual orientation, which is a very, very that's an important decision. The other important case was the Catholic Charities versus Wisconsin case. Again, unanimous decision, and this time written by Sotomayor. And in it, Catholic Charities was denied an exemption from an employment tax because basically the Wisconsin government said, you're not religious enough. And the key to it was they said, well, and look, Larry, you know this, right? Part of the Catholic faith is that you're supposed to go out and help people, do charitable works. And that's what Catholic Charities does. But the Wisconsin state government said, because you don't, at the time that you're helping people, try to convert them to the Catholic religion, because you don't proselytize then you're not religious and you don't get the exemption. And again, the court unanimously, yeah, it is. The court unanimously said, you state you're imposing a criteria that discriminates against different faiths, and you're interfering with the Catholic Church's decisions about how it runs its organizations. And yeah, they are entitled to the exemption. Again, very important decision. But yeah, even the third one, the gun case was written by Justice Kagan, and it was the Mexican government suing 7 of our gun manufacturers, not just Smith & Wesson, but all our big gun guys, saying, you guys are responsible for the gun violence in Mexico. And again, the court unanimously said to Mexico, you cannot sue these companies. You know, there's a federal law. It's called the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. And it basically says that gun manufacturers can't be sued for the criminal misuse of their guns by third parties. And again, the anti-gun wing of the Liberal Party must be really upset about this, because in essence, the court was saying, Mexican government, you need to look at yourself for responsibility for the violence in your country. Yeah.
So Hans, really quickly to pick up on that last case, and you know, when you were with me last week, you previewed this. You said this is going to be one to watch. We were talking earlier. Could this decision have implications for other governments, even U.S. governments like cities suing manufacturers of other industries? We're thinking about car manufacturers being sued by cities that have high crime rates, robbery rates. So D.C. suing, a car manufacturer because they're saying that they're making the cars too easy to steal. Would this kind of principle or decision apply to cases like that?
Well, this case directly applies to the law that Congress passed saying you can't sue gun manufacturers. But if I was defending any car dealership or car manufacturer, even though that was dealing with cars rather than guns, I would be citing this Supreme Court decision saying, look, you can't sue us for some third party, some criminal misusing our equipment.
Does this also affect some of the lawsuits we've seen in the past? For instance, famously, the lawsuits against the tobacco industry by government entities and such. I think those were settled. I don't know if they actually ended up going to judgment, but those affected public policy in a huge way.
Well, no, because, look, there's no secret about guns and how they're used and how they can be used. The whole issue with the tobacco companies was that the essence of the case is what they knew from the very beginning, that their product caused cancer, caused disease, and they went to elaborate lengths to cover that up and convince people it didn't happen. Larry, have you heard the old radio show ads about Lucky Strike? 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Lucky Strike.
Yeah, I think Don Draper wrote that copy, and look what happened there. All right, we'll leave it there. But listen, you let off this segment perfectly. If you're waking up today and you're a liberal, you're not happy at all.
That's right.
But let's face it, you also don't know where you stand on Elon Musk. Do you go back and firebomb a Tesla, or do you buy a Tesla? I mean, it's not a good day to be a liberal Democrat. Thanks, Hans.
Thank
you for having me.
Friday on the Derek Hunter Show, Elon Musk and President Trump are in a feud. Is it a blood feud or just a little spat? We'll talk about it at 3 o'clock on WMAL.
Can they mend these fences, Trump and Musk? And what was the origin story of this? Whatever triggered it, whatever caused it, maybe that's part of the solution on fixing it. Coming up in a bit, Reagan Reese, White House correspondent, along with Amber Duke, has some inside info from White House insiders on this story. You know what they need to do is they need to come together on common ground and work on something that they can both agree on. I think Trump loves the idea of his legacy being tied to that of Kennedy, who called the moonshot. Trump should call now for the Mars mission and bring Musk in on that and have Musk focus on that, which is his passion. And this is something that they can both be partners in, and Trump will always be affiliated with mankind reaching Mars. That's my suggestion.
I like it. I just think that may not be enough for Elon Musk. I mean, listen, not that getting to Mars is not a small thing, but he was just heading up one of the biggest efforts to right-size government in generations, and then to say, okay, now you just got to go to get us to Mars.
I think getting to Mars is way more important than Doge for Elon Musk. I could be wrong. It's 6:51. Coming up, we'll talk to Reagan Reese, who had a lot of inside information along with her co-author Amber Duke from the White House about yesterday's blow-up between Trump and Musk, what started it, and what could lead to a reconciliation. We'll get into all of that coming up next. It's O'Connor and Company this Friday with Larry and Patrice.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense.